everybody. Hopefully we are escaping the cold outside. My computer just is flashing between a exclamation point and snow flurries. Welcome and thanks for being inside. I think you want to be inside with me, but I'm not sure. Maybe just escape the cold, we'll see. So we're going to cover quite a bit today. The topic here is landing your top candidates through the art of negotiation. And I'm going to give you a little background in terms of where that comes into play in my daytime role. The challenge here really is that there's a lot of different information to share. My goal today is to give you some keys for being able to negotiate with talent going forward. And so without further ado, I will hopefully get my slides to work. There we go, maybe. So we're going to talk about the survey results, which were quite interesting. We're also going to talk about how to attract talent, identifying, negotiating, hiring talent, retaining talent, what has changed, what can you adapt, and why would they stay? Influencing leadership will be the last component, and that's really about being able to tell the talent story, tying talent to targets, and then obviously your talent culture. This is, this is kind of a big deal right now. I'm sure that most of you have all of your jobs filled and you have so many candidates that you're kind of trying to figure out like who to hire first, because there's just a line hanging outside the virtual door, right? And so really what we want to cover is what the heck's going on and how do you win this thing? That being said, there will not be a pool of candidates that we just give out at the end, but we will give you the tools to be able to go get them. All right, some background. So I'm Chief Connector of Talent Connect. Talent Connect is the result of Exclusive Search Connections and Connect Delaware merging through the pandemic. That happened essentially because we were asked to support a national client, multiple national clients now, with relocating talent. That's going to get really interesting when we talk about attracting talent because it demonstrates some of the new things that are happening to be able to bring in the right people that are your, we'll call them 10 out of 10, the people you have to have, the critical talent. I'm also a strategic talent partner to organizations recruiting STEM-based talent, caffeine-powered, connection-focused, and a yes specialist. So it is a very personal thing for me to work with employers and employees to get to a place where they're both in a happy spot and agreeing to start a new relationship together in terms of working. So that's a big driver for me. Obviously, I'm a speaker, educator, closet woodworker, many of you may not know that, and dog lover, and the vice president of Talent Connect is currently at my feet. So you may be hearing from her later on, we'll see. Survey results. All right, so we put a survey out to all of you and on LinkedIn and asked you what you wanted to hear about today, which was my version of cheating at this presentation to figure out where we were going. Interestingly, top performers leaving was 55% of the response. And you're not alone. The challenge of people leaving that may or may not be shocking is a real serious issue, especially if succession planning is not your organization's strength. It also gets to a point where enough top performers leave, it doesn't really matter what your succession plan looks like. You're at some point going to have to find an alternate plan. Recruiting the right people is 45%. And upskilling was 0, which I'm still scratching my head over. I think the upskilling piece kind of lives inside the top performers leaving and succession planning component. But I hear you on the upskilling piece. I do think I've had conversations with other consulting firms in the human capital space around that topic, and they are actually seeing almost a direct line comparing our results to the survey to what they're seeing out of their clients, and those are much larger organizations nationally, Fortune 100 type companies. The upskilling piece has sort of fallen by the wayside because the spend has been put into retaining and attracting, and so the upskilling component is still there, but really the fire is how do we keep people here and how do we get the right people here because there aren't as many as there were to choose from. I will also add, as we go through this, I'm wide open to questions. So I would much rather have questions. I'm happy to see your faces on camera. I know that that sometimes things happen and you have to jump off. That's fine. But if you have questions, please pop those up on the way through. And Emma, I'm going to try to see those on the chat, but if I miss something, you just let me know. Okay. Apparently I had that 3 times because that was really important. Okay, so attracting. I'm going to move my slides around here a little bit. So attracting. Some facts. Recruitment data should include passive versus non-passive. So the budget for hiring, and for those of you who are football fans will see, I'm sure, 1 million advertisements during the Super Bowl about job boards. And I love Indeed, and I love ZipRecruiter, and I love all of the new tech coming in to find people and find information. But you have to be evaluating where your talent is coming from. And I'm not just speaking about diversity, which is also critical. I'm also talking about your passive versus non-passive. How many candidates are you bringing in that are coming at you for jobs, which would speak to your employment brand, or coming through referrals? And then how many are you going and getting? How many are you educating about your organization? And how does that play into, jumping ahead a little bit, how does that play into quality of hire as the next part of that equation? So looking at where do your best employees come from and how do you connect to them? You're also going to learn more from a candidate that deselects than an employee who joined the organization. So this is kind of interesting. I have a lot of clients because we do handle that relocation piece, and many times it's getting out in front of, and I'll pick on one of my favorites. So there's a company called Lutron, which is an engineering firm, and they hire a lot of graduate students nationally. And they actually include us in their recruiting process before an offer is made. So we talk to the person about what it would be like to live in whatever city they're going to, what are their concerns, what are things that they want to make sure they can continue in terms of hobbies, if they need a mid-century sofa, or they need a rock climbing gym, or they need a specialty grocery, or they play a special instrument. So these are all things that, believe it or not, are in the back of their mind when they're considering your offer. And oh yeah, there's one other thing too. When they get home and they explain to their family that they've just accepted a new position, and we'll use in our case Delaware, and the family goes, "What? We thought that was just a meeting." So being able to wrap around that person and really be able to support them through the recruitment process. Flip side is they deselect, right? So they say, "I'm not interested in the position. I'm going to turn this down." I have a high school student in my house, and so I'm going to compare this to the dating world of high school. When there's a turn down, right? There's a turn down at some point. Not that there would ever be a turn down in our household because we're all incredible people, but let's just say there was. If there's a turn down, the immediate response when you're younger is to shut that down, and you don't really want to know anymore. It was a bad situation. That's uncomfortable. Ick, goodbye. It's actually the opposite when you're in staffing and in recruiting. You want to be able to go back to them, and you want to continue to build that relationship for a few reasons. One, you want to be able to make sure that you know why they're turning it down, because it might be something, it could be something silly. It could be something as silly as, "I'm not comfortable moving my car to Boston," and that happens. It could be something as silly as, "I have a group I belong to that I don't want to leave behind." Or it could be something as serious as, "I have a parent who I'm taking care of that I need to make sure has care, and I don't know how to do that with a relocation to Delaware or a move or whatever it may be," or a change in schedule for that matter, right? So I'm not sure if I'll have the flexibility that I have where I am now. Getting to know that data is critical to getting rid of those turndowns. And really the other piece of it is being their partner and developing a relationship with them, so that if they know someone else who fits that role, they're going to refer them based on how you treat them. So please don't take that deselect as a personal thing. You shut it down, you walk away, and you never speak to them again. It's not the teenage years. It's the professional years and being able to get to know what is driving that decision. So I teach a lot of students on when does this whole interview thing happen? Like what should I do to be prepared for it? What should I dress? Blah, blah, blah. It's the same exact thing with hiring. So the negotiation process starts at your very first contact. You're already negotiating. The person's probably asking you about what it's like to work there. The person's probably asking you about, are you hybrid? Are you flex? What are your benefits like? They may share some things with you in terms of what they have now. But all of those are pieces that will help contribute to your ability to negotiate a good situation for both parties. So keep in mind that the questions they're asking early on are usually the most important ones to them. And that could be at coffee, not an actual formal interview or Zoom or whatever that may be. But those are the things that are drivers. Recruiting and marketing should be twins. You should be tied at the hip with marketing. The social component, and Emma can certainly speak to this, the social component of recruitment and really everything is critical. So being able to pair up with your marketing leader and understand what is the brand, what is the culture, which you blend to them, and being able to work together is how organizations really set themselves apart. Questions? Okay. So what do these employees want? Flexibility, right? No, numero uno, that's the first thing we're hearing about. Any article you pull up, you're going to get flexibility. They want to have an organization that actually cares. And just for fun, I worked some songs into our presentation today, just to make sure you guys are fully awake. And I'm hoping that I can maybe get the ad-free version. We'll see. We didn't get the ad-free version. Okay. How about this? So here's your process in calling your candidates. People need to feel like they're cared about. So I just called to say, I love you. They need to feel as though they're cared about. And the reason that they need to feel as though they're cared about is because they felt for the last 2.5 years like they're not cared about. And so if you can differentiate yourself into a position where you are truly making a connection with them and demonstrating that that you're interested in them in terms of their success, in terms of the flexibility that they need, you're hearing them, that's a huge separator for you as well. Financial is always going to be the way. Yes, we have a song for financial. It's perfect. Hopefully it's ad-free. If not, I can put up my my link tree later on. We can all donate money to my YouTube subscription.
Kevin, I don't hear them playing.
Really?
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think you needed to share sound.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. How do I do that?
So if you go back to the share button, I think you can click there's like a little check mark at the bottom that says share the sound.
That's weird.
Yeah. You might have to unshare and share again.
He did ask for several screens last night when he was putting this together. And so this is my fault for not approving that.
Well, really, I would like a whole radio station, frankly. How do I, so where's the share button?
So the Zoom share button, the green one down below.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, if you don't have the share options, you might need to stop sharing and then go back.
Oh, because I'm sharing a different screen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. Huh. Wonder how I do that.
Kevin, I think you should just sing it for us.
I could sing it for you. All right. Well, how about I'm going to try this really quick and see if this works. How's that? No?
We'll push play and then maybe we'll hear it.
Whoa. Now I have two songs in my head at the same time.
That is my favorite song.
It's not sharing at all?
No.
All right. Well, that's a bummer.
I like the energy though.
Yeah, so now click the share button, but before you pick what screen you're going to share, check the little checkbox at the bottom that says share audio.
Okay. Sorry, I had that playing in my head the entire time. All right, so now I'm going to share again, and it's going to work, is the plan.
Yes.
Okay. That. Do you see it now? Do you see it now?
We see it. Yeah, push play.
I'm on the wrong song now. Hold on. Too many tabs. There's too many tabs.
Doing great.
There's too many tabs. How about that? Does that work? Maybe? No? Okay, I give up.
Oh,
All right.
sorry.
It's okay. So, so it was Money by Pink Floyd, which is the perfect song for financial. We only have like an hour and a half today, so I'm not going to try to fix this right this second. But at some point, I will figure this out. All right. So I'll do like a separate presentation. So financial, obviously, competitive wages and benefits, mental health services, culture of inclusivity, physical health, focus on your career health, career health. The deal is financial is always going to get somebody's attention. What's changing a little bit is these other pieces after financial. So the mental health services, the culture of inclusivity, physical health, a focus on career health. What is the project after this one? Not so much what am I going into in terms of this role. And there's a tendency to hire people, right, who have all the experience you need to come into a position and do the job today, except they're really bored when they get there because they already did that job because they have the experience. So the next piece is demonstrating creativity to be attractive. Being able to figure out how you can differentiate and how you can be A, authentic, but B, also creative in how you're bringing people into your organization, whether that is through storytelling, whether that's through speaking, whether that is through the types of recruitment that you do. Having those differentiators in place is important. Next one, we've always done it this way. That is a huge red flag. Please don't go there. We've always done it this way is essentially saying nothing's going to change here and you're going to come here for this specific job and you're definitely going to leave right after that. That is something that really doesn't work anymore. And it frankly lends to a culture which over 20 years I may or may not have seen in the workforce that looks a lot like you're lucky to have a job here. And that also doesn't work anymore. Value alignment. So in one of the future slides, we'll talk about opposites attracting, which they don't in the workforce. Value alignment is critical. And that is something that, we have things like Glassdoor, we have things like LinkedIn. We certainly have employees that are out on LinkedIn posting information in terms of what it's like to work here. We have folks that are identifying accomplishments of our employees as well. So that's all a culture and value alignment snapshot into your organization. And being able to connect those is really important in terms of that recruitment piece. Career, learning, and development. So determine what your talent strategy is to attract and retain. That's a big piece, right? So how do you put all that together if you're just going to go hire one person? Well, you're probably not putting it together for one person. You're putting it together for all of the people after that one person and that one person. So it's not something that you turn on and off based on hiring. It's something that is part of your organization, and it's something that will drive how you act with talent. The other piece of this is as follows. Let me get to the next slide and I can loop that back in. Talent attraction today is about connecting. It's about being authentic. It's understanding how two parties may blend. Winning the attraction cannot happen unless you care. There's a song there too, but we can't play that today. Maybe I'll send a full song list out after. Anyway, you are no longer, I was like, yes, let's do that. You are no longer recruiting an individual, recruiting their entire circle. And you are. So think about when you have a bad experience, how fast you tell everybody you know about the bad experience. So somebody has, we'll pick on somebody in the contracting world, because I feel like everybody's had some type of experience there that hasn't been a positive one. So somebody comes to fix your front door and they do a terrible job at it. You will tell every single neighbor that you know not to go to that person because they did a terrible job. The flip side is somebody comes out and I'll give you an example. Yesterday, so we had a little like roof shingle fly off our house, and the gentleman came out to the house, looked at the shingle, went up to fix it. He said, I can fix it right now because before I came here, I went on Google. This might be a little creepy, but I'm a recruiter. Looked at your house, figured out what color your shingles are, brought that color with me, and I can just go up and fix it right now so that it's ready before the storm. Big, big, big difference. I'm like introducing him to people I know. So being able to do that type of thing and attracting talent is huge. and being able to demonstrate that it's not just a job you're trying to fill. There's a person joining a new family that's behind this, and you want to make sure that as they're joining, they're comfortable and they have the things they need, and that you're listening to their concerns. The other piece of it is, again, not to beat this over the head, but the fact of the matter is that you're really not recruiting that individual. You're recruiting their family, you're recruiting their friends, you're recruiting their colleagues, you're recruiting all of the people who may also fit your organization, but you're also recruiting the people who are going to help influence their decision. So being aware of how you're interacting and the things you're providing to make this role attractive is really important. All right, so now we have the fun of negotiating, and everybody loves negotiating with employees. And the bottom line is, while we don't necessarily like it, it is also really important to do. If you have an employee, for example, who comes in and doesn't negotiate at all, and they just accept the offer and that's that, and they're ready to go, you're always going to question whether or not you should have negotiated, or maybe you overpaid them or underpaid them or whatever that may be. So being able to negotiate is important. We know already that that process started when you first made contact with them. Continuing to work with that person on an individual level is how you're going to win the negotiation process. So you're going to circle back and you're going to talk about all of the things that they said were important to them, and hopefully how you've been able to check those boxes on the things that are important to them. And then obviously the final piece is getting into compensation and benefits and all that good stuff. You want to make sure that you ask them at the end of that if they have any questions or concerns. And you want to make sure that you take those down so that you know how to interact with them going forward, because that's kind of like the breadcrumbs that they're putting out there in terms of things they're going to come back with. Next piece of this, before we even get to the offer, keep them informed. So I've had people who have walked away from jobs because they went on an interview and they were really, really well liked, but they just wanted to get something, an email, a phone call, a LinkedIn message from the person that they met with, giving them an update or sharing some information about the role or sharing that they had a good conversation with them, whatever it may be. Get in touch with them, keep them informed, let them know what the process is, let them know what to expect in the next few steps. And then also letting them know, who they would probably be meeting with going forward. Being able to work through that helps them to know what the plan is, helps them to know if this is, next week, or is it 2 weeks, is it a month, what does this process look like? The other piece is you actually want them to be able to start researching the people that they're going to be meeting with so that they're prepared for their interview. There's an interview process of selecting, and there's an interviewing to deselect, right? So some people interview to get to know somebody and they might say, I like all these people and one's a really good fit for the position. And at some point I'm going to bring in other ones for these other roles, hopefully. And some may interview people to go, this was the best of the worst, right? Like that's a real challenging space to come from because you're looking for the negative. Let's look for why this works and why it fits and why this can be a win-win situation. All right. So this is probably the largest challenge that you have right now in terms of the hiring process. Know your talent pool, which looks a little bit like a whirlpool right now, right? I mean, they're just all over the place. It's hard to figure out who's real, who's not real. It's hard to make sure that the person you talk to today is still available tomorrow. That's a challenge. In terms of knowing that pool, you want to get a pretty good idea of what I would call benchmarking. Benchmarking is you have a job in mind that you're trying to fill, or your team does, and you want to get an idea of who's available for that job and what their background looks like. So there's a tendency, because there aren't as many people to hire, to take one job and make it 8. And all of a sudden you have this job description that never ends, and they're doing everything under the sun, and it's just not even possible. I mean, it's crazy. Figure out what's actually not crazy. Figure out based on what you see, who's out there that would fit into your role. And I'm not saying you hire that person. I'm just saying, let's give it a realistic test to figure out if that actually exists in the world. Whether that's through an external resource or whether that's through working with your recruitment department to figure out what fits, or whether it's through bringing a consultant in, frankly, to benchmark that role by having a consultant sit in it and then decide either that's the person, or maybe the person is somebody who has some different skills than that, but that gives you a kind of a leg up on figuring out how they fit or what they would fit into. When you're talking to passive talent, you want to make sure that you're asking what would make this an interesting opportunity for you. So that's your switch to be able to close them later on. If you know what would make it interesting, then you know how to proceed. And frankly, if you know what would make it interesting and it's not something that you can do, that's a good time to figure out a different direction. If they're applying, you also know that they didn't only apply to you. So keep that in the back of your mind in terms of how you're moving through the process with them. They may have other offers on the table. You may be competing with another offer. You may be competing with other flexible benefits that you don't have. A lot of organizations right now are struggling with flexibility. They're struggling with hybrid. How can I compete against XYZ company who has a 3-day work week? Those are all things that you may run into when you're in the, what I'll call, searching talent pool. The other piece of this is that this is an opportunity for them to know you and for them to know why you chose the partner that you did. So share what you love about your organization and your position. So go beyond the description. I am somebody who, and I think there's more people like me as I continue my career. I don't like descriptions and I don't like resumes. I like conversations. I like to understand what you're looking for in terms of an employee. I like to get to know you. I like to kind of read how you interact with people. And then I like to go find the person that's going to connect with you based on all of those things. That's going to be a good fit. If it's all about the paper, then like we can create anything on paper and make it, go together. We would call that a spreadsheet. But really the goal here is to figure out how to connect people together and what is actually critical about this. And right now, critical about this is something that's getting a little lost in this talent panic that we're having right now. Offer negotiation, no demands. We do not say, here's this job and you take it or leave it. That no longer flies. It goes along with the world of you should be lucky to have a job, or you should be lucky to have a job offer. That's not the brand you want, I can assure you. No Lego offers. What the heck is a Lego offer? Lego offer. Those of you who have children who've stumbled out of your room in the middle of the night and stepped on a Lego. Not fun. The Lego offer is the offer where you're not really sure what's in there, not really sure what the benefits look like. Maybe you don't know all the pieces. Get to know everything. Be a representative of your organization. Make sure that you have the information that they're going to need or that they're going to ask about. And if you're not sure what that looks like, think about what you'd want to know. So share those things. Also, a good resource would be to go to somebody who recently joined your organization and ask them what they were concerned about in joining the organization so that you're ready to address those because they're probably similar. People have had different experiences and have very different needs. Be informed. So when I say that, I mean, understand what you can do and what you can't do in being flexible. Also understand that they're coming into this situation having a very different experience than you've had, more than likely. So their questions, their responses, their experience may be something that makes you raise an eyebrow, but you really have to get an idea of what that looks like before you can make a decision on it. So keep in mind, there's a great saying that you don't know what other people are going through until you're actually going through it yourself. Keep that in mind as you go through this. Again, being flexible, returning to earlier conversations when you gathered why the person would move and to choose a new role. So you want to be able to revisit those often because it's a very nice, subtle reminder that you listened and you addressed the things, hopefully, that they're interested in. Bring external resources in to help put them at ease. So that is somebody who maybe if they're coming in and you have someone who has either retired from your organization, or hopefully you have somebody who maybe has moved on from the organization that is still in great standing, or somebody who's been in the role that has been promoted. Those are all folks that can help. Certainly external resources, you can use things like shameless plug, Talent Connect to help move them. You can also use folks who might be able to help from a Chamber of Commerce perspective in terms of locale or school folks, whatever that may be. But having some external networking folks to connect with always helps in terms of understanding what will be available to them. I will tell you, in terms of Delaware, one of our favorite stories is the fact that you can literally be sitting in a coffee shop next to the governor, and that does not happen in too many other states. Be unique in connecting. So everybody who's on this call, Zoom, I should say, has received some email from someone that is clearly a blanket email that has zero customization, and you immediately go and find the spam button so that you can redirect that to a more appropriate inbox. Please don't do that. So be unique in your approach. Spend the few extra minutes to reach out to somebody to make it something that actually makes sense to them. If it's, that you need to ask for a connection to them from someone that you have in common, if it's spending a little bit extra time on their LinkedIn profile, whatever it may be, make sure that you're being more genuine in terms of your approach. Any additional questions? Okay. The world is moving faster than ever. Talking about your 60-hour work week just eliminated all of the people within earshot. So it used to be kind of like a badge of honor, right? To be able to say like, oh, you should see how many hours I worked this week because I'm so busy. That's no longer a good thing. We all automatically work 60 hours a week, maybe more than that. And so hearing that that's a badge for your organization is not going to help you in terms of recruitment. So again, we'll file that away with, you should be lucky to have a job here. Sharing the positive connecting experience you enjoyed with your friends and family will likely result in referral bonuses for you. So this is, again, you're recruiting the circle, you're not recruiting just the person. So you're recruiting them in terms of sharing what it's like to work there, but you're also recruiting them in terms of why you chose that organization. Next piece. Society's exhausted, make things easy. Nobody on this is obviously tired. We're all like good to go, no problem. We're all coffee. Has anybody had more than one coffee so far today? Anybody? Anybody? Nobody? Oh, I got hands. There we go. There we go. All right, good. Well, we got. I mean, the president is two-fisted. The president is two-fisted on the call.
At 9 in the morning.
At 9 in the morning. Well, I was up at 4. I don't really know why. That's my new time to wake up now, which is fine. The dog appreciates it. And I clearly have had some coffee, so we'll just leave it there. Society is truly exhausted. Make this as easy as possible. When I coach people in terms of finding new jobs, I tell them to reach out and give somebody a job to do. Ask them for one thing, right? Don't say, I need a new job. Flip side, reaching out to somebody who you're interested in for a job, ask them something that's an easy answer. So let's get the ball rolling in terms of conversation. Let's not ask them for 14 different things where they have to create a deck. Let's ask them for something pretty simple, get them engaged, and start talking to them and moving them through your process. Last one, if you're not asking why, your talent will go dry. I made that quote just for you guys. So here's the thing. You need to understand the whys. Jessica shaking her head. You need to understand the whys of why are they accepting? Why are they turning down? Why are they not interested? Why are they interested? If you're not collecting that information, like your data is junk, frankly. So you can record all day long how long it takes you to fill a job. And on the corporate side, that was one of my favorite metrics to like beat up, because my experience with that is that you can fill a job very quickly depending on the tact which you go about doing it. But really the important metric is how long it takes to identify the person. So, looking at measuring both and figuring out how long it takes to actually hire, but also how long does it take you to find are two critical things. And if you're not laying why in there, then what do you really have? So keys to attracting, again, understand what you're looking for, right? If this is an 8-job job description, let's be honest about that and realize that there's not somebody who's going to be all 8 people. What's critical in the job description? I like to back up a client when they have that 8-job job description and say, give me your 3 most important pieces to this position. Just give me your top 3. That's all I need. And then we can go from there. But I don't want more than 3. And if there are more than 3, it's not really one job. It's like 2, at least, maybe 3. What will you do when you find the person? Soapbox. Please don't tell them to go fill out an application, because they're not going to. If they're passive talent and you say, oh, go fill out an application when you see something that we like, great. But if there's somebody you really want, tell them to go do that and then schedule something else on the side of that. So please don't put them into the abyss that is your applicant tracking system. They're great. They're great tech. They're super smart. I get it. They can screen for all kinds of fun things. But the difference in organizations that are willing to say, you know what, you need to fill out the application online because we're going to need some information on you. Great, good, awesome. But let's set up a time where we can have a Zoom, or we can meet for coffee, hopefully maybe after March. Or we can have some type of interaction that keeps them going, where there's an actual person to talk to. Think about when you're doing something that's important to you. Do you want to just fill out some information? Like, imagine if your mortgage, right? You filled out the mortgage information, the 50,000 page deck that you have to fill out, and then you just basically like sent it somewhere and you didn't hear anything for a while. You would be losing your mind. So stop that. Stop that. If somebody's interested in your organization, they're gold, because their experience is something that is already positive because they like you, and they're going to tell everybody they know. So that I had this great conversation with Kim, and Kim helped me to figure out that there might be an opportunity there, or maybe there's not an opportunity there, but there could be in the future, but we're going to network. And she was really great. I really enjoyed her time. It doesn't take more than about 10 minutes, and you can schedule it on a Friday. Fine. Or maybe even a Monday, because if you're in staffing, Fridays are not good. Monday. Making sure you know what to do with them when you find them. Have a plan. And honestly, have a executive or somebody in leadership that understands this model, that if you have what I would call a 10 out of 10, so somebody who can totally help your organization, that arrives on the scene and wants to talk to you, there's somebody on the executive team that also buys into this, that will talk to them, because that will blow their minds. So having that ready to go. Prepare all critical team members. There's the point. Be authentic. So remember back when like employment brand was all we all talked about, and it had to be authentic, and you couldn't be something that you weren't in terms of being authentic, being a brand. That's even more so now, right? Because now we've got people who, please don't show your hands. Now I've got people who are on a Zoom call that may or may not be wearing pajama pants. And so it's pretty real, right? It's pretty real. So I don't think before the pandemic, I ever included Bridget the dog in any Zoom presentations or calls. She's happy to be here based on her snoring, but I'm not sure what that says. But I think that, we're like real people now. There's all kinds of fun stories I can share with you over happy hour about how real people are on Zoom. Let's be authentic to who we are, so that when we get down the road with this relationship, we're not dealing with somebody who's like, this is not what I thought it was at all. Understand what's important to the candidates you're focused on. So let's just pick on sales. Let's say you're hiring somebody for sales and you're not really sure how to approach them, how to find them, what to do with them. Go talk to your salespeople about what they like and what they read and what they do. Go talk to them about the groups they belong to on LinkedIn. Go talk to them about the Facebook groups they look at. Go talk in all of those groups in terms of like, how do I get to those people, right? That's the corner cut right there. Be realistic about your flexibility and know what your limits are. Okay. So there's this thing we like to call compensation studies, and compensation studies are typically things that we stand on and say, this is our range. We'll never go above it. It is what it is. This is it. If that's your driver, that's fine. You have a budget limiting recruitment process. Like you can't bend. And that's a thing. And that may be a thing that works for a lot of roles and organizations. If you truly want your 10 out of 10, stop with the budget-driven recruitment. So if you have that, you have your 3 things, you might have 4, you've got somebody who's a shooting star because they're going to take over your marketing, your HR, your finance, whatever it may be. they're going to seriously influence the organization going forward. And you're coming at them with a budget number, they're like, no. Because the bottom line is they're going to then turn around and say, well, if I'm limited by this budget coming in, what's it going to be like when I'm there? And I have somebody right now that I'm coaching through a role who has 3 offers, and one of them, they were like, this is it. Can't go beyond here. Sorry. So from a leadership perspective, especially, if you're going to stick on a budget and you're doing that from a compensation study, I would encourage you to benchmark your role. Understand who's out there that fits the role. Don't limit it to compensation, because you may find the right person is like $5,000 more, which is not going to break you. You can do a sign-on bonus. You can do all kinds of fun things. We can certainly talk about those. But there's ways to get around that $5,000. So make sure that you understand that. The other piece is staying connected and keeping the dialogue open. So people will deselect based on how they feel. People remember how you made them feel, not what you said. They also don't really remember what you pay them about 2 weeks after they start the job. So keep that in mind. How you feel is what's going to keep them going. And lastly, measure your results. Asking why, figuring out early on, work with your recruitment staff to know what they're measuring, what data they can collect, and maybe what data you want to know about, so that you have those pieces as required information on your application process. Any questions? Okay. Nobody's making comments about my shameless plugs for the Camden Aquarium. All right, so what do we got here? Retaining talent. This is not just a problem in Delaware, right? This is something that is affecting all of us, obviously, by the survey results. And it's not in one expertise or industry. Although I will tell you, the engineering world right now, they are losing their minds. Employers are no longer, in case I didn't make it clear, coming from the perspective of you're lucky to work here, and your data can't tell you what you're not asking. Why are they leaving? So I stole this shamelessly, but they're leaving because they're getting better compensation and benefits. It's no longer better compensation, secondary benefits, it's a blend. They're getting better work-life balance. They're not getting recognized. So let's go back to the whole, you guys didn't hear it, but the Stevie Wonder, I just called to say I love you. At some point you will hear that, or you'll hear it in your head the rest of the day. To find better corporate culture, company values don't align with theirs, lack of strong relationship with peers, and 5% don't know. I'm going to say the 5% were called by a recruiter. I'm just going to go out on a limb there and say that that's what happened. So somebody talked them into taking a position. That's probably what went down. I would also say that 2021 data, I bet you that 36 is closer to like 45, because 50%, I think I saw 50% of executives who were considering changing jobs have now changed jobs or in the process of changing jobs. So that's a lot of people moving around. Any questions on that? Okay. Where are they going? So people have awakened to find there are other opportunities to explore. They now know that they're valued, right? And they also know that there's a shortage of people who can do what they do, regardless of what that is. Organizations are talent-centric are winning. Basically, the ones that are working on, there's that quote that I'm sure everybody on here has seen that says the CEO says, "Why are we spending money on training these folks so that they can leave?" And maybe it's the CFO that says that. The CEO says, "Well, what if we don't train them and they stay?" So focusing on figuring out how to build your staff internally, your external candidates are going to notice that, as are obviously your internal employees are going to reap the benefits of that. Recruiting taught organizations to ask why and to learn from losing. So when I say that, I mean, as recruiters, as HR folks, your goal is to work with your hiring managers, your business partners, your leadership to understand the whys of why you're losing battles in terms of talent. Quick sidebar on here is there was a search several years ago with a client that we really were not all that interested in taking on because there were some horror stories around a search they were running. And the horror stories were to the tune of them looking for somebody in leadership and interviewing over 200 people and not being able to find anyone who fit that job, or people were turning the job down like crazy. So probably about 50-50. So let's say they had maybe not 100 turn downs, but it was just north of 50. And came to find out that they had not done a whole lot of homework on how everybody on the interview panel felt about the organization. And one in particular did not feel good about it. And they were sharing that in their interviews. So people were deselecting out of that process based on the fact that it looked like a terrible place to work. So get to know who's on that team and get to know what their story is going to be in terms of what they like and don't like about the organization to make sure that it makes sense, right? And if it doesn't make sense, then that's obviously somebody who you can work with in terms of development. In terms of retention, it's the next wave of the exact same principle. So we're going to get into that component next, but really figuring out like how do you keep them from leaving, and what are the things you can do to keep them from leaving. Recruitment and retention have a couple silver bullets. It's called knowledge and data. Those are the keys. And I'm sure we've kind of covered this already, but at least I'm going to say at least 10 of you have had somebody who left the organization that was a complete shock. All right, negotiation. Employment surveys are only effective if they trigger a response, and they don't need to happen only on an annual basis. So our friends at Marlette, actually, we've talked about them before. Susan McGarry has shared this with Delaware SHRM. They do a weekly survey to their employees to take a temperature on how they're feeling. I know that's through Slack. I'm pretty sure it's through Slack. But that is something that certainly you can do. And it's something that a lot of organizations have adapted, and they were way ahead on this, but there's a lot of organizations that have adapted it to make sure that they know how their employees are feeling, and they know if there are areas they should be addressing. So that's perfectly fine. The challenge is if you do that and don't respond. So you can't collect and not respond. Staying surveys are also very effective. They too will trigger a response. So if you're going to reach out and understand how your employee base is feeling, and get into surveys to understand how happy they are, what they're worried about, what they want to work on, their development opportunities, then obviously you can't just take that and lock it away and say, well, we'll cover that next year and during your review. No, it's a much more immediate thing. The key to negotiating your current talent is to never let it get to negotiating. And we're going to cover this. My personal favorite, counteroffers. So here's the deal. I did steal the stat. 1 in 4 people choose to stay. I actually think that's kind of high. 18% stay another 3 years, 20% leave after 2 years. The measurement that's not in there is how many are just angry, frankly, the whole way through. So if you have gotten to a place where your employee has an offer and they're considering it, and your solution is to counteroffer them to keep them, the next 2 things will be true, I can guarantee you. 1, you're going to give them more money, and they're going to get upset that it took you to this to give them more money. 2, you're going to give them more money, and your expectations are going to increase about the job they're going to do, regardless of if that's possible. So neither one of you will be happy. I'm not saying that there are not creative situations to retain somebody who's critical to your organization until you can transition that. All I'm saying is that if you've gotten to a counteroffer, that should be an indication that, back it up a little bit, we need to maybe institute some staying interviews. We need to get to know our talent a little bit better. And frankly, we need to give some more thought to how you're developing internal talent, especially high potentials and critical folks, because I can't imagine a counteroffer going to somebody who doesn't fit in either one of those buckets. So you can do them. I don't recommend them. On the flip side, I don't recommend accepting them because it's the exact same. There's resentment there. There's always going to be resentment there. So making sure that if you're going to take a counteroffer, you're prepared for the resentment factor. And if you're going to extend a counteroffer, you're prepared for the resentment factor on both sides. What works? Asking why, listening, like really listening, scheduling follow-up when you do that, being able to respond to them, and repeating that as often as is necessary. There's a couple organizations actually in Wilmington that they don't necessarily do employee engagement surveys. What they do is this process. And so they're getting in front of their employees. They're teaching that top down to have manager meetings that are not like, let's talk about what you screwed up. Let's talk about how you're feeling. Let's talk about how we can move you forward. And it goes all the way down the entire organization. If you are not familiar, one of the books I read pretty early on in my career is a guy named Lee Cockerell, who's the COO, was the COO of Disney. And his entire book is about, I'll get it to Emma and we can send it out, but it's essentially about getting to know the folks who are the actual contributors to your organization and understanding how you can improve their lives and how you can take the data that they have and use it to help the organization. Great book. That's very applicable in this environment. All right, talent flexibility examples. So here's what you're competing against if you do not have any flexibility right now. It's as simple as this, and it will get really wacky, right? So short work week, pet sitting, childcare, concierge relocation support. I know somebody does that. Continuing education and coaching, teaching opportunities for some. So you may be in a capacity where somebody wants to work with one of the universities or colleges in the area and maybe teaching classes at night. Maybe that's something they want to stretch their legs on. Family-based health and wellness, hybrid work environments, meals delivered, alcohol delivered. Okay, no, that's not real. I'm just kidding. The home furnishings is actually real. So people who have very early on wanted standing desks, those things were getting shipped out like crazy for people who wanted to be able to stand at home because they were standing at work. It goes beyond there. I mean, there's literally, there's a company in just over the border in Westchester that they provide like pet grooming. So they'll send the pet grooming van to your house, and while you're at work, your dog gets a bath, or your cat gets groomed, or whatever it may be. So it's based on what the employees are looking for, and those are things that when you really look at it, let's say your cost per hire is $10,000, and that's a pretty low number. If you're spending like $500 on that, honestly, you're way ahead. So make sure that you can compare what it's going to cost you to leave the person versus what you can do for them. Retention tools you should have. Stay interviews. You can guess what's on that was. Exit interviews, employee engagement interviews, opportunities for advancement, and then accessible leaders with frequent communication. Let's say 2000s, early 90s, the phrase was my door is always open, right? So that no longer door, maybe there's a door for some of you, but for most of you, there probably isn't a door. My Zoom probably should not always be open because who knows who's in there with you, but certainly there's an opportunity for you to have a conversation with somebody easier, I'll say, than in the past. Flexibility around work schedule. Nobody's really working till 5 o'clock. You can be pretty flexible in terms of having conversations. Somebody shouldn't come away from their day going, I can't get to my boss to talk to them. Like there should be a way to have that conversation. So making sure that that's part of the next year. All right, influencing leadership. So there's a lot of good stuff here in terms of how to find people, how to retain people, how do you keep them all together, how do you get ahead, right? How do you influence the leaders? How do you get them to realize, right? Because if you're coming out of an organization that's you're lucky to have a job here, they're like, no, we're not going to do pet sitting. So figuring out what does that look like? Leadership will respond to data because from a board perspective, that's what they're typically used to seeing, right? So again, going back and figuring out what you can measure and what's important. And there are all kinds of dashboards you can pull in. Some of you that have applicant tracking systems or HR systems probably have dashboards baked in. It would make sense to review them. If you need somebody to help you build a dashboard, I will plug Compass Red in Wilmington. They could certainly help you with that. Or the Delaware Innovation Lab, if you're a nonprofit, certainly could help you with that. Both are organizations that would be able to support that. The innovation piece, right? So typically, when we get to a place where we can't find people and we have like 40 open jobs, which some of you may, the innovation piece kicks in terms of how can we figure out this talent crisis and how can we combat it? And so being able to demonstrate what's innovative to them within reason, and you'll know your culture better than I will, is important and can help you to get that moving forward. The next piece is plan, right? So they're not really interested in having surprises pop up. They're not really interested in, we could do this down the road. You're going to need, when you have the opportunity to influence them, to show this is A, B, C, D, and E, and this is how this is going to work and how it's going to fit together. And 4, this is the results that you can expect. Those are the pieces that you need to influence them. The results need to happen, and if they're not going to happen, they can't be surprised by a miss on the results. They need to understand why it's happening, or if there's additional resources needed, but they need to know what to expect, right? They typically, from a leadership perspective, there are organizations that are great with people, and there are organizations, obviously, that are not so great with people in terms of leadership. I get it. What I would say is, you need to get them at least to a place where they understand what they're facing. And for the most part, I would say the media has done a great job of talking about how hard it is to find good people, right? That's been going on for years. We now have a situation where you're competing against organizations that may be in the same space that are offering things you're not offering. And so that's a challenge. So did you have a question?
I'm so sorry. I just accidentally hit the mute button.
Well, hello, Sonia.
Oh, hello.
So results, right? All right, there you go. All right, so pandemic provided an opportunity to elevate your skills into leadership and into a leadership critical role. Own that responsibility. This is like, you're all gonna like, I would say you're all gonna at me if I was on Instagram, but I'm not on Instagram. I would say, as much as it doesn't feel like a gift, it is a little bit of a gift if you use it right. The people side of every organization is challenged. You can either run with that and lead it, or you can let it be a challenge and someone else will. So getting to know what those challenges are, getting to know, and this is important, getting to know what the strategy is for the organization from a business strategy perspective, so that you can align the people side of it, is going to put you ahead. And knowing what's out there and what's happening in terms of other organizations to support that is also critical. Partner with organizational leadership on an individual level. So what does that mean? So we talked about how marketing and recruitment should be twins, right? And they should be. But if you're not a numbers person, recruitment / HR and finance should also be really tight. And if you have onboarding situations that are not so fun, then recruiting and operations should be really tight, or HR and operations. And lastly, technology, because technology typically can finish all those conversations and say, oh, we can make that run really easy. So figuring out what that looks like, and also figuring out from a technology perspective, the amount of cybersecurity that's going on with people working remote and new employees and all that good stuff, you want to have a good, strong relationship with them. The sidebar to that is that having a strong relationship with each of those individuals, and they don't have to be leaders, they can be emerging in that group, will help you in terms of presenting your case for where you want to go with human resources / people, because these are all stakeholders who respect you, partner with you, you support them, they support you. It's all good stuff. So I know that sometimes there's an oil-water relationship between some of these groups. You need to make that 100% flowing down the same direction. All right, so influencing. We need to measure results, right? So we need to understand how many people are coming in, how many people are being hired. We need to break that down in terms of where people are coming from. Obviously, we need to be very aware of diversity hiring as well. We also need to know what our cost per hire is, because the flip side to cost per hire is, if you're going to spend on development, then you better know what it costs you to acquire. Because if you're going to spend $20,000 to develop and it only costs you $5,000 to acquire, at some point, somebody's going to ask what's going on. You want to make sure that you have a recruiting source report. This is, again, something I enjoy doing. And so I'm happy to work with you guys if somebody needs some help with that. But understanding what your sources look like for recruitment, understanding where people are coming from, why they're coming. Certainly the SEO component of it in terms of how they came in via the internet is important, but those are all pieces you need. Quality of hire, I would by far put above cost per hire. Because if you have a incredible quality of hire percentage, and that is something that is driving your organization based on the incredible skills you have on board, then the cost piece probably can be increased based on the fact that you have great people. And it's even more so if you have great people who stay. So your investment can be more upfront than it could be otherwise. You need to be familiar with what your high potential percentage looks like. So understanding who your hypos are, understanding what their track is, understanding how many are staying, how many are going. That's the center of your dartboard, and then you go out from there. But you should be very familiar with what that number is. Again, stay interview and exit interview data, they're huge right now. Even if you're able to, I would even factor in there on the interview side, exit interview side, the turn down piece should be right there with it. So you're going to be in a position where you're going to have to shape the flexibility of your recruiting process. And that flexibility means that you're going to have to come up with creative alternatives to attract talent. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by working with the people who don't accept the jobs and do accept the jobs to understand why. So make sure that that's an important piece in your data collection. Circling back a little bit here. So understanding the critical goals of the organization. So this goes into, let's not build a Ferrari if they really need a cargo truck, right? So if the goal is 1, then you don't want to build 2. You want to build the same thing that complements that 1. Making sure that you understand that and making sure that that's a way to keep that line open with the executive team to make sure that you have the respect and you have the influence in that space. So blending the data with external resources to demonstrate opportunities. Your role really is not only to know the data side, but also to know what your competitors are doing and what's going on outside. If you're interviewing people, then you should be able to get into conversations where you can gather some data about what your competitors are doing. I have clients that do that all the time. They literally point out, this is where I'd like somebody to come from, whether I'm going to hire them or not, based on the fact that I just want to have an idea of what they're doing, what they're thinking, what's going on. Why wouldn't you do that? Plan for the questions you're going to receive, have answers or resources. This goes back to the whole Lego offer. Make sure that you know what you're going to hear in terms of questions and that you have some answers ready to go. Will there be a question that you have to get back on them? Yes. But please don't make the offer of $120,000 with a 20% bonus, and I'll get back to you on all the benefits. No. You're not ready to make the offer. Back up and take your time through that process and get to know what your benefits look like. And also get to know how much flexibility you have, because in that conversation, you might be able to say, well, I understand you wanted 130. I'm not sure we have that type of flexibility, but like if we did a sign-on bonus, like what would that look like for you? They already see that you're on their team to help them get in the door and much more willing to bend going forward, right? Because you're already trying to work with them. Like you want to get them in, you want to help them. So that's important. All right. Here's a summary. There's a couple points I want to make when I go back, but key points to remember. So be comfortable with your talent dashboard. This is something you really should be reflecting on along with corporate strategy. So you want to make sure that you can measure the things from a talent perspective that you're going to need to know based on connecting to your organization's strategic plan for the next month / quarter / year. People remember how you made them feel, especially in interviews. It's essentially like going to the doctor and having a doctor that has great bedside manner and having a doctor that has terrible bedside manner. It doesn't matter if your checkup or whatever it was awesome. If you're going to the doctor and they have terrible bedside manner, you're never going back again. Like you just don't want to. It's the thing you don't look forward to. If you interview somebody and you end up turning them down, but you do it in a way that is, so when I was at Radian, our big thing in the recruiting team that I built there was, I worry about the second runner-up. I have an HR business partner to worry about the person we're going to pick. They're in great hands. They're going to walk them through the process. They're going to onboard them, all that stuff. I want the second runner-up to feel like they're happier to not be selected than to be selected based on how we're going to wrap around them. For 2 reasons. 1, we might have a second job open. 2, they're going to tell everybody they know what a great experience they had. So we would do things like we would tell them networking events they should go to. We would introduce them to other people outside the organization who may have opportunities. These are all things that are going to help your brand, and they're all things that there were situations there, and they were in mortgage insurance, where at the height of the lovely world of mortgage, they would call down and say, I need 16 people on Tuesday, and it was Thursday. And I'm not kidding. And so we would have to go find 16 people. We could do that based on how we treated the folks we didn't select, because we could go out to that group and say, this is what we need them this day. And it wasn't always even them. It were people that they knew who were like, hey, I had this great session with them. I want to have more people have that. So keep that in mind. Please, like, don't, if somebody doesn't get the job, it's not like, let me go hide from them because they didn't get the job and I don't want to talk to them because I don't feel good about the fact that they didn't get the job. Just give them feedback and be transparent and try to help them. Next piece, why wouldn't you ask why? So there may or may not be a beer commercial from several years ago, which was why ask why? Try Bud Dry. I think that, well, yeah, probably Bud Dry. Anyway, so I always hear that in my head when I talk through that. But seriously, ask why. Ask why. And ask why in a creative way. Don't just go why. So you want to make sure that you're asking why. You can dress it up into, so tell me, how do you feel about this benefit program? It sounds like it's something that really affected your decision process. Tell me what you wish it looked like, and take that data and collect it. That's important. So being soft and conversational around your whys. Lastly, test your data. There is no experience worse than having data that you think is great that is not good. So testing your data in terms of recruitment, make sure it makes sense. Give it the reasonability test in terms of, can those numbers actually be accurate and correct? What does that look like? Those are pieces that you obviously need to have in place and you need to be comfortable with. And you also need to know how they compute out, because if somebody asks you a question on how they compute out, you should know how. And you should know what's contributing to the numbers happening. So those are the key pieces, I would say, in terms of what to have on your radar. In terms of tools, here's stuff you should have on your dashboard. Obviously, this will be in the slides that we send out. I'm happy to work with any of you to try to build some of these things out if you need them. But really, it's something that that can help you tell the story, right? It's the pieces that your executive team is going to need, and they're pieces that are going to help you to influence them. That's me. I ran through a lot of that. I see there's like 5 people in the chat that I will check out. And we will work on song lists, apparently, like playlists. So we'll figure that out too. But are there questions? So I'm open to whatever you may want to talk through. I will tell you, the pieces you really need to worry about are having a plan in terms of talent, making sure that the talent you're working with, and I started in staffing in 1999, hence the gray beard. But really, the point of my training when I started was, I'll never forget this. The person who ran that shop said, every candidate you talk to is like a little nugget of gold. And you need to make sure that every little nugget of gold is someplace where you know where they are and you can keep them together and they all like you, right? And so it is even more true now. Every person that you talk to about a job with your organization, or somebody that might be interested in a job in your organization, is a nugget of gold. So make sure that you're treating them as that, and that you're able to stay in touch with them, stay connected to them, see if you're okay to follow up with them. Most people will say yes, but make sure that you're somehow tracking them the right way. And the flip side is you can also blend marketing into that follow-up so that they're getting information about how awesome your organization is too. So that's one. Second one is please do stay interviews. Please do stay interviews. And if you start to see data that tells you there's a problem, address the problem. And also make sure that you're going back in your stay interviews to thank people for their time. And that can literally be as simple as sending them a gift card to Little Goat. It can be as simple as sending them a gift card to Peach Blossom, which if you haven't been there, you should go there. And if they're not local, you can certainly use a Starbucks, but get them something to just say, thanks for taking a few minutes with me. That's that. Okay, questions.
We do have a couple of questions in the chat. So the first one comes from Kim. In the disappearing talent pool, where are they all going? It seems like a net loss of total candidates. Is this the effect of baby boomers permanently exiting the labor force? Great question.
Great question. Yes, yes, and yes. So yes, it is essentially.
Sorry, hold on one second. Kev, you may want to stop sharing your screen so we can go to a gallery view and kind of make it more of a conversation now.
Does anybody really want to see that much of me?
Yes.
I guess so. All right, fine. All right, full screen. Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, so so in terms of what's going on with the talent, yes. So you have the boomer population that is like, I'm out. And in some reasons, in some examples, and there's a ton of data on this. Some of it is I'm out because I need flexibility. Some of it is, which is a really kind of a fun project that we should like bring in a psychologist to kind of walk through. But the amount of people who went through the last 2 years and were in their homes or someplace else where they couldn't socialize and said, you know what I like to do? I really like woodworking. I don't want to do my job anymore. I just want to woodwork. And I was totally one of those, although I do want to do my job. So let's go easy there. But seriously, there's people who have figured out that they have hobbies that they neglected forever because they either were commuting or they were working crazy schedules. And now they're like, no, I want to do that. I don't want to do this anymore. And if they're close enough to retirement, they're like, nope, I'm going to go do that. And I'm not staying here anymore. And so that's the first challenge. The second one is, Stevie Wonder said it best. If they don't feel as though people are caring about them and they're like, I don't want to be here because nobody cares and they're just going to pick my brain and set me out to pasture at some point, why are they going to stay any longer than they have to? And the flip side is that the challenge is, did that generation promote people fast enough into roles where they could assume the role they're leaving? And I believe that's the other challenge that's here. So I think that it's a very different workforce. You've got the baby boomer population that's ready to move out and retire, perhaps a little earlier than they otherwise would have. And some of that probably is coming from watching their parents have maybe a smaller retirement than they hoped for. And some of it is saying, no, I think it's actually pretty nice outside when it's not, 15. But being able to go live at the beach and do what I want to do and have hobbies is where I want to be. And I have enough resources to be able to do that. And the flip side of it is the organizations are hurting because there weren't necessarily people who were ready because nobody saw this coming. I mean, on your plan, you didn't have all of that population retiring right now. So that's interesting. We're also seeing folks, like I said, who are starting other careers. So the hobby thing is there, but there's also quite a few folks who decided I want to go into teaching, or I want to go into something in the service space, or I want to go sell cars, or whatever it may be. But those are all the pieces that I think are in there, and that's what's contributing to this. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for the generation kind of behind them to take advantage of things and be developed up. But that's a really great question.
I also see a lot coming in towards the end of last year and coming into 2022. Inflation everywhere, right? Everything's getting more expensive, including childcare. I can tell you, my oldest is 12, my youngest is 4. Never before in 12 years have I seen the inflation in childcare like I've seen in the last year. Since September, my childcare costs have gone up $50. That's $200 a month for one child.
Yep.
If I'm not making enough, or I have 3 kids in daycare, I can't afford to continue working and send my kids to daycare. And so I'm starting to see a lot of the younger generation exiting the workforce because they just can't afford to continue working. So,
and I think that lends to the need for hybrid and remote. There's also a little wrinkle there that is the boomer population can take care of those kids, and in some cases that's what they do. So they're coming into that world to say, I'm going to take care of your kids for you. You go to work. You need to work. I don't like, I can stay here. The price of that is obviously limited in terms of what their expenses are. And they're limiting your expenses as well. So that's another place where they're going. But you're absolutely right. The inflation piece is mind blowing. And I can tell you the housing market is also presenting some challenges around that because even to find temporary housing for folks in some of the cities we work in is almost impossible. I mean, these people are like, I want to buy something, but I'm not going to right now because there's nothing to buy. So I'll rent until I can. So when that starts to kind of crack and that population says, I'm going to sell my house, that's going to be a really interesting time to see where people settle. So it'll be interesting, but that's a great question, Kim. Thanks for the question.
Okay. There was another question. Is there a standard set of questions you ask during a stay interview, or is it more of a casual conversation?
So yes, there would be essentially like behavioral based questions you could throw in there. I personally think that you're at a point in your conversations with an employee where you want it to be more genuine. So everybody thinks about behavioral questions with a like, so tell me about a time when, and then everybody's skin like goes up, right? So, so let's not do this. So tell me about a time when. Let's talk about, the past few years have been pretty challenging. We really appreciate the fact that you've been able to contribute in the ways that you have. How are you feeling? That could be something that you're doing one-to-one, or if you're going for a survey component, then you want it to be anonymous, right? So you want to be able to put out there, tell us how you're feeling about the organization. Tell us how you're feeling about your job, how you're feeling about the benefits we're providing. So getting all that information back in an anonymous way and being very upfront, they're probably not going to be truthful if that anonymous survey comes out of HR. Not happening. So knowing how to get someone who can do those surveys is important, but also someone who can bring the data back in a level that it's meaningful, but not so granular that you're outing people. So that's important, but that's larger organizations. I would build it from the perspective of the survey piece, getting to know critical talent. That should be an ongoing conversation in terms of connecting with those leaders that you have that you need to have in that building or in the shop. Other questions? No other questions. Whoa, nice. All right, where are we here?
Sorry,
All right,
that
so-
was me. I want to pop up their credit codes.
Oh, good. Okay,
Okay.
so credit codes for today, if you want to submit those, are up on the screen. Thank you, Emma, for sharing those up. All right, so that was a lot. I tried to get as much value into there as I possibly could in multiple directions. Obviously, I'm pretty passionate about the whole concept of negotiating, winning, getting the right people, figuring out why they're not coming. If they are coming, are they the right people? It's just something I like doing. So if you need some help, you want to talk some things through, I'm happy to do that. I know my information's on the last slide when we send those out. You can certainly reach out to me, but it's a challenging time. Creativity will win. There are lots of articles out right now. I think Inc. just put one out. Forbes just put one out. If you Google those, they'll pop right up. But how you're managing your workforce, where I would say where there's smoke, there's fire. And so if you're starting to see things that are happening, they're probably bigger than you think they are right now. And two is we have to be more creative about the solutions we're providing to people who both work here and we'd like to have working here. And those organizations that are doing that are winning. So the engineering firm up in Pennsylvania and nationally, they're hiring 150 people this year. And most of them will probably, let's say 100 will relocate. We have not had a single turn down in so far 35 employees. And they don't negotiate salary. So it's all the fluff. It's all the how you make them feel. It's all knowing that they're going to have a career track. It's all knowing that they're going to be going through a rotation in terms of once they get there, they'll be able to learn beyond just this job. So there's a lot of opportunity. Like this is definitely a time when, yes, there's companies that have put things in place to get ahead, but there's also opportunities for you to still jump in there and put things in place to win that battle for talent. So thank you all. Emma has one of my favorite lines of all time, which is a meeting that ends a little early is a gift to everybody. It's something like that. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like that. So we're a little bit early. So there's my gift. And feel free to relit on coffee. If you have questions, like I said, let me know. But thank you for attending, and stay warm, stay safe with whatever the snow coming is on the weekend. And we'll hopefully see you in person soon and see you at the session in February, the 2 sessions in February that Emma set up. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin.
Have a good day, everyone.
You too.
Thank you all for joining.